Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Unati. I am here live with you with my wonderful guest. I want to introduce myself first. I am the founder of Dr. M Health Corner page here on Facebook and few other groups. Few I could mention Kids Mental Health and Self-Esteem Championship. I hold these groups dear to my heart because I'm here to influence, I'm here to change, I'm here to teach, I'm here to learn. So I'm excited to have Sheila here. Sheila is my guest. She's just an amazing woman. And funny enough, we have not met in person, but it feels like we've known each other for years.
Absolutely.
Our energy is just tapped, and it's just beautiful, the vibration we have, Sheila. It's just lovely. Thanks to Umi for introducing us.
Yes.
So I'm going to let Sheila lead us. Today, guys, we're discussing something that I know a lot of you guys, I didn't have much knowledge about this topic. And honestly, I had some prejudgment about it because obviously, like I said, I didn't know anything about it. It was not familiar. It's not what I did as a kid. Sheila here has homeschooled for 25 years.
Yes.
I couldn't believe it. It's been around for years. Yeah, so Sheila is going to take us through homeschooling. I know these are the hard times where every parent is anxious. Every parent is kind of like, where do I start? So Sheila is going to take you guys through. I'm so blessed, Sheila, for you to consider taking this lecture for us and also teaching and opening our eyes because, like I said in the beginning, a lot of times people have these prejudgments about homeschooling, not much knowledge about it out there. And I know that homeschooling has evolved. One thing I can tell you about homeschooling that I wish I could have access to is to choose what I want my child to learn, which I don't have that option in the traditional learning. So I can't wait to hear from you about it. So I'll leave it to you and just introduce yourself, Sheila, and let us know who you are, what you do. And at the end, you can share what nuggets you want us to take home and also what you do for a living too. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is a topic that's very dear to my heart. Obviously, it's something that's taken, up 25 years of my life.
I can believe it.
Yeah. And you know what? It's really 29, depending on where your philosophy is. My philosophy is we start teaching our children as soon as they're born. So
absolutely,
it's 29. So really, homeschooling, teaching at home, that's all it is, educating at home. And we all actually do that to some degree, right?
Absolutely,
we don't
yes.
have our kids come home and then never talk to them or try to teach them a lesson, or it's not all just academic, right?
Absolutely.
So, and then when kids are younger, 2, what do we start doing? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You start teaching them already.
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
So,
yes.
So 29 years, since my son is 29 years old, or if you want to start kindergarten age, I just put it at 25 years because that's kindergarten age, 4 or 5 years old. And so I love it. I absolutely love it. I am here to try to dispel some of the myths that are surrounded around homeschooling. So there's probably a lot of myths, so I'll probably just tackle 2 of them. And then just kind of give you an idea of my journey, how I got started. I'll talk about that. And then also maybe some tips for people that have found themselves thrust into their children being at home and educating them, helping them to continue with their education while they're not in a school building. So yes. I just thought of some things that might be challenging to people, but it's probably going to be a lot of things that are challenging that I
am sure.
Cover. So I'll just, we could do this all day, really, we could. But, maybe there'll be something, Unati, that we can maybe put together where there could be more of a Q&A or something at some point, right? And
absolutely, I'm open to that.
People, I love. Okay, so when my son was my first son. So I have 6 kids. I have 5 boys and 1 girl. And when I had my first little guy, at about when he was 4 or 5, when it was time to go to school, I so enjoyed that process and that interaction with my son that I just did not see myself sending him to school. I'd never known about homeschooling. I never thought about it before. But when that time came, I just thought to myself, I can teach him whatever the schools can teach him, right?
Teaching. Yes.
And
Yes.
so, it was like 1, 2, 3s, ABCs, colors, I could do that.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I just decided, I had a friend who homeschooled, and her son was maybe a couple years older than I was. And that's how that connection was made for me. Now, that was back in Michigan. I am from Detroit, Michigan, and I homeschooled partly in the States and then also here in Canada. So I've been in Canada, Calgary, Alberta, for the last 19 years. So I've had experience in both locations. So that was good. It was just sort of like, okay, I'm on this homeschooling journey. So the first tip that I would give, because I know this audience is going to be mixed. It's going to be people that maybe say, maybe I want to give this homeschooling thing a try past, the schools being closed, right?
Yes.
And then there are some people that are just like, I just want to get through this part and, send my kids back to school. And it's okay either way, wherever your thoughts are. It's okay to change. You don't have to stay in whatever stance. Yes. But my tip would be, do your research. There are different philosophies of homeschooling. And when I say that, what I mean is there are different methods and philosophies behind homeschooling. So a method could be, you'll come across something called the Charlotte Mason method, right? And this was an educator in the past, and she explains her method. And her method is more like out in nature and learn from, that type of a thing. There's eclectic. And I'm just naming a few. There are a lot of different philosophies.
Oh my
I
gosh.
was more of an eclectic homeschooler.
Okay.
And that's where you just took a little bit from everywhere. Whatever
everywhere
to you, that's what you implemented.
Yes.
And there's a whole lot more. There's online schooling. There's school at home where you try to implement.
I've seen it.
Look at home.
Yes.
There's so many. Not to overwhelm you, but there are different philosophies. So I'll share my philosophy with you all, and then just encourage you to do some research and find your own. Just Google homeschooling. I'm sure lots of things will come up. Homeschooling philosophies. So I had some values that I didn't have, I still have, that I really wanted to instill in my children. And when I decided to homeschool, I wanted to have the time to instill that into my children, because it does take time. And I looked at schooling as something that would eventually take my kids out of the home for 8 hours a day or whatever, however long school lasts. I don't even know anymore. But so I wanted to have the time to instill. So these were the few things. One was I really wanted to instill a love of God into my children. And all of these things, you still can instill them in your home while your kids are going to school. I just enjoyed the process of them being at home. The other thing is I wanted to instill health, because I was really big on eating healthy, nutrition, positive outlooks, all of those types of things. And I really wanted to instill the care of the body with my children and health. And at least back in the States, back at that time, I didn't see that the lunch program was going to be very healthy for my children. So I wanted to instill that. I wanted to instill the sense of family and family togetherness. So I knew I would have more kids, and I did. And so that family togetherness, as opposed to separating and being in different grades and different this and different that.
Different schools,
Of
yes.
course, we got to separate at some point, right? I mean, you don't walk around together all the time. But in the early stages, I really wanted to instill that. And I'm happy to say that at, years later, my children are very close. And
Oh,
they
that's
are,
beautiful.
they all get along. They're all accepting of each other, and they're all here in Calgary or the Calgary area, and we all work together as a family, right? So what I wanted is what I got.
Is exactly what you got.
Yeah.
Good for you.
And then I also wanted to instill an entrepreneur spirit in my children.
Okay.
My husband worked for himself, had his own business. I really believed in being an entrepreneur and being the boss, so to speak. And
Yes.
I wanted to teach to that, right? Them finding their talents, finding their purpose, and being able to step out and do what they're supposed to do in life.
Yes.
So that is kind of called delight-led learning. I wanted to teach to their strengths and help them develop that. So that came from research. I didn't come up with that. That came from research.
You know what? I like what you just said, Sheila, because I speak highly about us parents identifying our kids' talents and their success and the definition of success, because nowadays a lot of times academic parents, they want their kids to be lawyers, to be doctors. Mm-hmm. And it could be possible that my son wants or is great with an instrument or is great with soccer, or great in all. I don't have to box my kids. So that's one thing I love about what you just said. You didn't want to box your kids. You wanted to see them out in the open and seeing what they were good at and embrace that. Fantastic. Yeah. That's success. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
love it.
That was my whole thing. My whole thing was, of course, we're going to gear our children according to our values. That's our purpose. That's the point of parenting. And so for those people that,
yes,
I know a friend and they're totally happy. His father decided he was going to be a dentist and instilled that in him.
Yeah.
And he went to school, he did the whole thing, became a dentist, and he's a happy dentist, right? So there is nothing wrong with whatever direction that you want to go, right? And guess what? We don't even do it perfectly. It could have been that he guided his child to be a dentist and his child hated it. Or it could have been you let your child be delight-led and find his strengths and talents, and then he decides on an instrument, and then he decides he hates it.
Exactly.
We just don't know, right?
We just have to be open. We have to be open as parents and try to be more coaches than being dictators. That's the whole point. That's how I look at it. That's how I do my own parenting, and I love it that way. Yes. That's my own principle, our principles in our family.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. See, you'll be a great homeschooler. Homeschooling.
Woo, I would love that. I love my travels.
Yeah, yes, and travel. And there are some perks. Like my oldest son, who's now 29, when he was 12, he started boxing, right? Like, fighting, boxing. He started that, and then he actually was good at it. And so therefore we started traveling into the States. He was able to travel to Ireland to fight. And he'd have these competitions all over Canada and all of that. And we just packed up the kids and went. We didn't have to, like the younger siblings, right? We didn't have to try to juggle a school schedule. Yes. And for me, I loved that, right? It was like, my life is not dictated by the school schedule. So there are some perks that you decide the direction of your family more so. And then also the reason why I chose to homeschool is because there were things in school that they taught kids, which were fine, but I didn't find them important, right? It's like certain things aren't important to me that my kids learn. right? So
Mhm.
I wanted to emphasize the things that I thought was most important, but I did
Things that
do
matter to
some
you guys.
research, right? I
Yeah.
didn't just come off the, oh, they should learn this, they shouldn't learn that. I did do my research. I love researching. So I did do my research
Mhm.
so that I could form my philosophy and what appealed to me and my husband, right? So that's how it all
Yes.
began. Would you like me to go on to some myths, or did you have some questions, or where do we want?
Absolutely. That's actually what I'm interested in. And also, before you get to the myths, can you please tell me what were your challenges? Because I know that you had this great experience, but what was challenging in homeschooling for you? Because we need to also bring those points so that people know what they're getting themselves into.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. Um, the biggest challenge for me was for me to um, change my thoughts even per kid, even though I thought that's what I was doing. So, even though I was like, oh, I love this whole delight-led type of thing, I actually had my first son did not like the delight-led. He actually wanted me to structure
Mm.
him, and he wanted me to, you know, I was go with the flow kind of a person. That wasn't working
Mm-hmm.
for him, and he was my first one.
For
And so,
him.
but I'm like, no, you don't have to compare yourself to people, because he was like, well, the other kids already learned
Ah.
this, and I'm like, so what? They're
Oh,
learning at their pace. You're
what?
learning at your pace, and it actually bothered him, right? So even though I reassured him and I
Mm.
said, we're learning according to us, right? He still, and I think it has to do with being a firstborn child, but he still looked at what is everybody else doing, no matter how much I tried to get.
Is doing. And it's all natural.
Yeah,
It's all natural.
right.
It's all on psychology books. We are feeling all reassured, and most so his mates, because you are the parent
Yeah.
looking out at what his friends, because I'm pretty sure you still exposed him to play with his friends. They
Oh,
talked as friends, right? So it's normal. Yeah.
right. And it's
Yeah.
because of that, he would, I don't know, he just was like that. I think just type A personality, firstborn child, and competitive maybe, right? With so for him,
Right. And I mean, he went for boxing too, right? The sport he played, the sport he chose, right?
right.
It's
Yeah.
competitive.
Yeah. So that was one thing for me
Yeah.
to be able to say, well, this isn't, I wanted it all to work the same for every child, right? It was like, okay, this is my philosophy. We're going to put
Yes.
everybody in that
Yes.
philosophy. And that could,
Yes.
yeah, it's no different than saying this is going to school and this is everything you're going to learn. Like I did that same thing, but I did it with home, right? So it took me some time to get out of that thinking and realize that,
Of that mentality.
yeah, you almost have to
Yes.
tailor per each child, which may sound intimidating, but the journey is fun. It's not intimidating. Okay, the other thing.
Exactly. And I mean, that's how we should do anyways. We can't compare our kids in general, right?
Right, exactly. The other thing has to do with
Yeah.
the amount of time that it takes. And it
Yes.
does take time. As much as possible, you try
Yes.
to integrate homeschooling into life. So let's say learning measurements. Instead of taking
Mm-hmm.
measuring cups and all of that, you actually cook. And you take the measuring cups and you cook with your child and you teach it, this is a teaspoon, this is a tablespoon, while you are in life, right? It's not all just
Yes.
book work. If you want to teach, what's the perimeter of this room? Guess what? Take out a tape measure and actually have your child do the room, right? As opposed
Wow.
to it being book work. So as much as you can integrate, math is really easy to integrate into life, especially with money, right? You want to teach your kids math, do it with money. And kids like money. And we all, and it's easier. It makes it applicable, what they're learning in math, it makes it applicable to their lives. So it makes it seem like less time, right? The other thing is, even though it takes time, it doesn't take the same amount of time as it takes in school. You have to look at it as private tutoring. So where a kid might be in school for 8 hours, they're not learning for 8 hours. I don't even know if it's 8 hours, but they're passing between classes. There's recess. There's different things. So the actual learning is probably about 4 hours a day, probably half the day that they're in there.
That's what I realized. That's what I realized, actually.
Yeah. So
when we start talking confidently about, too much free time in homeschooling, actually, even in school, there's other activities that are non-academic.
Yeah, absolutely.
I get you.
So from what they say is 2 to 4 hours of homeschooling equates a school day, right? So it does take time, but integrate it into your life and have fun with the time. Enjoy the time, right? Enjoy that time learning alongside your children. And so that's a challenge, how much time it takes. But you'll get into a rhythm. You'll get into a rhythm, especially those that are just thrown, kind of forced because the school closings. Right?
Homeschooling for us.
Yeah. And then,
So, what, Sheila, without wasting our time, I want us to get into the myths, because I don't want us this tape to cut us off. If we could jump on the myths and then basically just to reassure people, and because at least this is evidence-based stuff, you research. So if you could open our eyes there, that would be great.
Yeah. So the biggest myth is the whole socialization myth. They don't get out, they don't get into the world. And if you think about it, they actually are in the world, depending on the parent, but you're actually participating in the world more than kids that are in a school building. Because while kids were at school, just think about it. When kids are at school, I'm taking my kids to the grocery store. And then we're learning at the grocery store, right? Grocery store is part of life, isn't it? Right? So they're interacting with people at the grocery store. I'm taking them to wherever I have to go and do and participate in life. They're going with me. So they're actually seeing and witnessing life. If we do volunteer work, we used to do volunteer work. We've gone to old seniors' homes. While kids are at school, my kids are in seniors' homes, and they're interacting with seniors, right?
Wow.
We get together.
They basically learn emotional intelligence so early in life. They are socialized in all aspects and understand people from all walks of life. That's amazing.
They're participating in life. So it's actually the opposite is true, right? And when we are working, my husband has taken my son to the office when he was 3 years old, right? They're participating, they're interacting. And the last thing is we get together with homeschooling families or other families. There's neighborhoods. You don't keep your kids from the kids in the neighborhood. You let them play in the neighborhood. So they are getting, I think, way more socialization. So for instance, my son who boxed, he found his sport. From the beginning, he used to do taekwondo and take classes. There's classes to participate in. And then when he boxed at a high level. So he was Canadian national champ twice. He traveled home for boxing. Sometimes we all traveled as a family. When he went to Ireland, he just went with the boxing team and competed in Ireland. And then he would go to the States. We made that a family trip. And then he boxed and was Texas state champ. So he started training in Texas. We actually sent him to Texas to train without us. He didn't stay with us. He went and stayed with my sister. He trained there, and then he won the state championship, and he went to Olympic trials from that in Denver. So, I mean, lots of interaction with lots of different people.
Socialized, and they could succeed.
Yes.
Wow.
And then my second son, he was more philosophical, less sports oriented, right? So he did photography. He was more artsy. Photography, drawing, art. He builds furniture now. He's starting to build furniture. He's, created all kinds. He's more creative. And so we followed that. We allowed that part of him. And then my daughter, horseback riding, ice skating. What else did she do? Ran track. You know, all these activities, and these were not just homeschool activities. These were other, it was just ran track with the city track team, right? And went out and she got to travel as a result of that, right? And then my twins, and then also my younger one, you know, church activities, huge way to socialize and get your kids out there. Missionary trips, right? So my son now is considering, you know, at some point going on a youth missionary trip. So all of these things add to your education, adds to their education, adds to the book. Yeah.
You know, what you just said, Sheila, I'm just seeing some comprehensive way of doing things. There's altruism thrown into it. There's compassion, there's kindness. You know, there's allowing your kids to expand their territories. It's just beautiful, hey? And this is interesting because the way I always thought, it's the opposite of what you just thought. You just said, I thought, oh my gosh, they just have this narrow spectrum schedule. Like, it's the opposite. What you just said, it's exactly what I would love if I had an option. I love my freedom. I'm a type of person who, when I think of a trip, I just want to pack and go. You know what I mean? But now I can't, you know? And also, the other thing I wanted you to mention, your kids, did they tap into it automatically? Because I know of a colleague who took out his child from the system, from the traditional learning, took her out, and he felt he wanted her to get the homeschooling, private classes, blah, blah, blah. And the kid got depressed. Sorry about that. I hate it. You know, so I'm sorry to interrupt. So basically, sometimes it depends on your child's personality. How do you align with your plan as a parent? Because you're still a parent. Do you align with what your child is trying to do? Like, how do you adjust it? How do you balance this? Because some kids, like my son, he says it. I'm a social mom. I would not. I want to be out there. I want to be with my friends. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So for people who are just, I think, at least for me, I started at the very beginning, right? So none of my kids were ever used to going to school, meeting their friends there. They were used to meeting their friends around the neighborhood in classes that I put them in, coming together as families. It was just a total different thing, right? So for kids that, you know, now it's like, for some kids, they're going to say, yeah, I want to homeschool. I like this. I was just talking to a friend. Kid's been in school, very active, does sports, and now she's learning online, and she's kind of like, I like this, right? I like this homeschooling. Very social girl, right? Wins championships for wrestling and all kinds of stuff. And then you're going to find some that say, no, I want my friends. And either way is okay, right? You just have to align yourself with that. There's no wrong or right. But what would be right, I think, is to, especially if the kids are used to going to school and then you're having them, they're forced to be home, basically, right now. And not only are they forced to be home, all those things that I said that can provide this socialization, we can't do that now, right? We're not going to homeschooling classes. We're not going to church. We're not doing anything. So they are at home. This is like seriously at home. So it's not the same situation as when you can get them and expose them and bring, you know, have them go all over. We can't do that now. So that's what kids' ideas are going to be right now of homeschooling is I'm trapped at home. And that's not really a true image, but that's the reality right now. So,
you know, actually sorry to interrupt you, one of my friends here on Facebook said what he found easy with his kids transitioning to this homeschooling was to put down his 12-year-old and 8-year-old and said, guys, come up with your schedule. So once you give them that freedom, kids love freedom. We all know that. And they love that control, that I'm controlling my schedule and stick to it. And then, of course, as a parent, you are there to monitor that, right? It's just that I feel for parents who are working, but I guess the whole world now is on lockdown, right? So I guess we are somehow at home, we could monitor the time, right?
Right. Yeah.
What advice parents out there who want to monitor this time and also scheduling and making sure that we had done this much today? Like, you don't want kids to kind of think that, oh, it's homeschooling, I'm not going to do anything. So how do you balance that, the time management?
Yeah, I thought about that, and I think that for the kids that are used to a particular schedule at school and I love them scheduling themselves, I think it's important to try to create as much normalcy as what they're used to at this time, right? Because if you try to make it all even more different, then it's going to, it might not turn out well. I don't know. This is like new territory, right?
I honestly think that.
So as much
So
as
we need your advice to be as close as we could get to their normal schedule.
Yeah, I think so. I think that would be, I think that will give them that reassurance, that will give them, because it's kind of not really an assuring time right now. So if they can have that reassurance, and I'm not really sure if people have like online resources from their schools right now. Is that what's happening? So, let them do as much as they are used to doing, just like the school system, and don't try to switch it up too much. Yeah, that would be my advice.
Awesome. I wish we had more time. I have so many questions, but I know that we're gonna get together because I have so much to ask you. You're such a wise woman. I think we could probably just wrap this for us, Sheila, and just reassure people the anxieties people have, what to expect. Just throw those nuggets for people to say, you know what, guys, you're gonna go through this, you'll be okay. You know what I mean? Yeah, and then
the kids will be okay. I think that's where the anxiety comes from. It's like, oh, are they going to get behind? And just, you know what? Just go about your day. Don't project worries into the future. This is something that it just is. It just is. Yeah.
This is what we are given. This is what we are given. This is the present moment testing for all of us.
Right.
Yes. This is what we given.
Kids will be fine. They'll be awesome. And they'll get right back into school, and they'll get right back into that rhythm if that's what you choose for them to do.
Yeah. Just to wrap up our conversation, Sheila, can you just who are you? Who is Sheila? What are you doing? You do a lot of stuff.
I do.
In all your of schooling, as homeschooling, what are you up to these days?
Well, a couple things. I have a home-based business. So about 12 years ago, I decided to do something more than just homeschooling and to start a home-based business. And it focuses around health. As I said, I'm really big on health. I'm really big on self-care. I'm really big on taking care of this body, because how are you going to be effective in other areas of your life if you don't take care of your body? So with that, I work with Young Living essential oils, and I help teach moms how to, and I raise my kids this way as well, with the Young Living essential oils, using essential oils for health. So I do that. I am an author, first-time author actually, and so I've written a prayer journal for entrepreneurs. I'm really big on women and entrepreneurs. So I wrote a prayer journal for that. And I'm hoping to start a podcast soon, like this month.
Oh, nice.
Like in the next week, we'll get the
wonderful
podcast going. And that all is centers around God and being an entrepreneur, making God your CEO. So, and then we also own a horse barn facility with my daughter. And so I'm into horses. So it's a lot.
I can't wait to bring my kids. How big is it? I can't believe the size. How big is it? I can't wait to bring my kids.
Yeah,
how big is your ranch?
We're on 76 acres, and we board horses for other people.
Oh my God.
Yeah, in Pritis. So we board horses for other people, and there's riding lessons there. So people will ride there and they board the horses. And I think we have about 25 horses right now at the facility.
Really?
So, yeah.
I'll drop in. In summer, I'll come. I'll bring my
Yes.
kids.
It's
Yes.
beautiful. That'd be awesome.
Yes, yes. Okay, Sheila, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And honestly, I would love to be part of your podcast. You are so wise. I've been listening to a lot of stuff you're saying on Facebook.
Yeah.
You know, this time has made me to slow down and listen. It's just beautiful.
It is.
Yes. It is just lovely. It's lovely. I've slowed down. I'm listening. So I am following your work. It's beautiful. All the best.
All righty.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm hoping you guys, if you have any questions for Sheila, please, you drop them. We're going to send this presentation to our different groups and to our pages, and then people will contact Sheila. And again, thank you so much.
Yeah, note in the comments if you have questions. I'll read comments to this, and I'm more than happy to talk with anyone individually if you think I could help you out or encourage you. So, all righty. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Sheila. God bless. Bye.
Bye-bye.